Hi, we are going to practice how to decompose a vector into its x and y components. So let's imagine that we have, let's say, a toy. And this particular toy is being pulled by a string. And this person is pulling with a force of, let's say, 20 newtons. Okay? And the angle between the horizontal plane and the vector force is, let's say, 30 degrees. So normally you will be asked common questions about problems like this. Probably the first one will be find the x component of the vector and find also the y component of the vector. So let's practice doing that. So let's recreate what we had in the problem. The force vector is equivalent to 20 newtons, and the angle between the vector and the horizontal line is going to be 30 degrees. Now what we have to do is to find the components on the x-axis and the component on the y-axis. So basically it's going to be something like this. This will be the y component, and this will be the x component. If we are going to look for the y component, which is this one, is basically this same component over here. The trigonometry function that relates the angle with the side or opposing side is going to be the function sine. So in this case, we're going to have that sine of 30 is going to be equals to the opposite side divided by or over the hypotenuse. So since we are looking for the opposite side, we are going to solve for that. So let's switch terms if we like. Sine of 30 is going to be equals to the opposite side divided by, in this case, the hypotenuse is the given vector, which is going to be 20 newtons. So in order to find the opposite side, all that we have to do is multiply these two terms. So the opposite side, let me change that for something more refined. So I'm going to call it the y component of the force vector is going to be equals to sine of 30 times 20 newtons. And after we run that in the calculator, we will have that the y component of the force, which is the opposite side, which is this side, right? This is the opposite side, or the y component of the force is going to be equals to 10 newtons. We keep the units that the vector is giving us. Okay, now that we have found the y component of the force vector, let's look for the x component, which of course is going to be this one. Okay, so this one, this projection over the x-axis is going to, we're going to call it the x component of the vector force. So in this case, we have the angle 30 degrees, and we're looking for the adjacent side, right? And the trigonometry function that is going to help us find that is going to be the cosine function. So if we're going to do that, we're going to have that the cosine of 30 is going to be equals to the adjacent side. In this case, we are calling it the x component of the force divided by the hypotenuse, right? We already know that the hypotenuse has a value, and that value is 20 newtons. So all that we have to do to figure out the value of this x component is going to be to multiply these two, right? So we have that the x component of the vector force is going to be equals to cosine of 30 times 20 newtons. After we run that in the calculator, we're going to have that cosine of 30 times 20 is going to be equals to 17.3 newtons. So we were able to figure out that when a vector force of 20 newtons at a 30-degree angles, the x component, meaning this part of that vector, is going to be equivalent to 17.3 newtons. And we already figured out that the y component was 10 newtons. So normally those will be the problems that you will see in regards to decomposing vectors. Similar things happened with velocity vectors, and the procedure is exactly the same. So just remember that if you have the angle, the function for the opposite side is always going to be sine, and the function for the adjacent, the one next to it, the adjacent side, is going to be cosine. Okay? I hope you find this helpful.